Welcome to Invest in Denver podcast. I'm Ashley Wolkomir. I'm a real estate investor, an entrepreneur, a real estate agent with the FI team, dog lover, dancer, all the fun stuff. My little tip for Denver is I wanted to share my favorite dog park with you guys, Cherry Creek Off-Leash Dog Park. So it's like 12 acres of a completely open dog park in Cherry Creek State Park.
I will say that that is probably my favorite state park or dog park as well. It has that. It's the one with the little creek right next to South Parker Road, right?
Yeah, a bunch of pools for the dogs to jump in. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, during the summertime, my dog absolutely loves it. As long as there's water there. If it gets too hot, then he's like, I don't know how I feel about this. He loves the winter time, but summertime, as long as there's a creek there, he absolutely loves that park. So thank you so much for that tip, Ashley, and welcome to the Invest in Denver podcast, a FI team production, but hosted by me, Ian Jimeno, and welcome. So I am so excited to get into your story and really excited to just hear about how you even became part of the FI team, the agent stuff, the investing stuff, but I know there's a whole bunch more to you and you have a lot more to give to the Denver community. So before we get to the Denver portion of it, I know that you're not from here originally. So where are you from and what sort of sequence of events happened for you to actually end up in Denver?
So I'm from Missouri. I grew up in the Kansas City side of Missouri, and went to college there, Southwest Baptist University. And my family actually grew up in Colorado. So all my extended family, grandparents, aunt, uncles lived in Canyon City, Colorado. It's about 2 hours south of Denver. So I grew up coming to Colorado, hiking, skiing, all the fun stuff. It was always a dream of mine to actually live in Colorado. But it came true when my mom moved to Colorado. She moved 10 years ago, and I followed her about 5 years later. So basically the whole family just kind of got together again.
Yeah, so 2017-ish, you arrived in Denver and sort of planted roots here, yeah?
Yes.
Never looked back since. Maybe you go back to Missouri
No.
for any sort of like family gatherings or retreats or something like that.
Yeah, I think I've gone back twice because they have a cool lake scene there, but that's it. It's called Misery for a reason. It's humid bugs. Denver is so much better.
I will say, like, I've noticed that as a certain trend. I mean, with a lot of people coming from the Midwest and even like Minnesota, Wisconsin, even the East Coast, Texas, they all just sort of flock to the Denver area. And that is none more evident than license plates. Like I'm seeing them everywhere, just all these other out of state license plates being here in Denver. So what other portions of it? I mean, I know you like the lake scene over there in Missouri, but what I'm noticing too is that mosquitoes are still a thing here, even though winter, I would have thought that it just like exterminated them for that like 2 seasons, like winter and maybe spring, you know?
Yeah. I feel like all of the bugs in comparison to Missouri, they shouldn't exist here, but we still find them. Not in the mountains, though. That's the perk. You can't go somewhere to hide in Missouri from the bugs like you can here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I've never been part of that lake scene, but I'm extremely jealous that you even grew up with that stuff. And having some friends, maybe family over there still gives you a reason to come back. But we're glad that you're here in Denver, though, Ashley. So when you like moved here in 2017, I guess, how did you make a living when you first started out here in Denver?
So I did a quick stint in Maryland actually for 2 years where I was a zookeeper for a year. That's actually what I got my degree in. However, I hated the zoo I worked at. So I worked as a zookeeper for a year and went to the Petco that was like down the street of mine just for something new, since I wasn't liking the zoo and they were hiring a dog trainer. So that was my long time career before becoming a real estate agent. So dog trainer at Petco for about a year in Maryland. And that's part of the reason moving to Denver was pretty easy was because I was able to transfer with that business. So I just transferred to Petco and dog trained up until 2020.
What were you doing as a zookeeper over in Maryland? I mean, I'm only thinking of exotic animals and some crazy stories along the way, but it sounds like it was a pretty easy transition for you to go from Maryland to Denver. I mean, going from zookeeper to dog walker, dog trainer. You love animals.
Yes. Yeah. So the way I was hired at Petco, they didn't even really interview me. I said I can train giraffes to come when called by waving branches. They thought it was really funny, and I had a degree, and so Petco was like, "You're hired." So it was really easy to transition over. Zookeeping, I did enjoy it. I kind of joke that it's a glorified farmer. It was a lot of manual labor, and I'm like 120 pounds. Like it's rough to dig out mulch in the bear exhibit multiple times a week, and the management was just kind of not the greatest. But the experiences were amazing. I got to feed bears, work with lions and giraffes, and yeah, I'll never take back that time in my life. But dog training was definitely my passion, and now real estate's even greater passion. So it's been a cool career ride.
Yeah, that seems to be quite the career change, especially going from dog trainer at Petco to a 1099 employee, working as a real estate agent, getting to know Denver a little bit more intimately as far as the markets go, working with buyers and sellers and all that good stuff. Before we get there, though, that's something that I would like to end the episode on because there's so much juicy stuff that you're learning about, I'm learning about, and I know we've been in communication with our own deals and our own clients. But I know there's like so much more of the Denver community that you're a part of, and having that sort of Petco and dog training aspect of it. You started a whole bunch of different jobs along the way just to like get yourself more self-sufficient and just make money along the way, right? So along with dog sitting and being a dog walker, what else did you do?
So I dog trained. I was a mentor for Petco. So I kind of consider myself an entrepreneur in a sense that with Petco, they gave me the reins of how to run a business. So I learned how to kind of run a business from the back end of Petco. COVID, unfortunately, they furloughed. And so that's how I kind of switched careers. My choice after I got furloughed and didn't know what to do with my life was to buy a hot dog cart. And I named it Willow's Wieners after my dog, and she came with me to every shift. And that is what I did for 2 years while I was studying to get my real estate license.
How was that? I mean, that must have been quite the ordeal. And I mean, hot dogs and dogs, there's no better similarity between the two. And it's just almost like synergistic. Were you posting up near dog parks, or how did you really get your business?
Yeah, since I brought my dog with me, I had to kind of sacrifice going to like downtown Denver and Vind because like dogs cannot be around that scene. So I went to dog parks, skate parks, baseball parks, things like that. People loved it though. It was during the pandemic, and so it was kind of nice to have an option available for food. And just when you're at your local neighborhood park, you can buy a hot dog from Willow's Wieners.
I still can't get over that name. It's an amazing name.
Yeah.
With that being said, I know with you wanting to be an entrepreneur and starting your own businesses, and I mean, you got to take into account the profit, the losses, the experience, and everything in between. How long did you run that business for, and did you come out in the positive at the end, or what was that whole experience like?
Yeah. So for me, the reason I got started was to see if I had the self discipline to actually run a business. Because for me, my social life is incredibly important. So I had to balance making sure that I was working to make an income, but still, keep my sanity by having a life. So I did end up profiting. I worked for the warm season. It's about 6 months. So I worked 2020 for 6 months. I had to really, really save my money in order to make this happen because I knew during the winters I wasn't going to have anything to do. And when I bought the hot dog cart, I wasn't even thinking 6 months in the future. So I had saved enough money in order to know that whether or not the hot dog cart didn't do well, or even if it did do well, that I would be able to make it through the winter. So 6 months, I made about 5,000 each summer for about 6 months. So I never made a ton of money, but I also joke that I only worked like 20 hours a week, enough that I survived and enough that I could have a social life. But it was not something that I wanted to do long term. I definitely knew I needed to have something with a little bit more accountability than just me being my complete own boss. And something, I'm a teacher, dog trainer, teacher is definitely what I'm passionate about. And there was no teaching involved with selling hot dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, I ended up profiting about 10,000. The only reason I was able to do that was I had my startup cost was buying the hot dog cart, which was $4,000. I sold it for $3,900, so I lost $100 selling the hot dog cart, and then I bought a Jeep to pull it, and I bought and sold that for 3,000, and got all my money back on that. So I was lucky to be able to sell my startup costs to profit about 10,000.
Yeah, when you think about it, I mean, over the course of 6 months, you're going to see some wear and tear on it. You're going to see some, I mean, I'm not exactly sure if it was powered or you had to keep the wieners warm or anything like that. But I mean, you would assume
Propane.
that I would have to, or you would have to, I don't know, polish it up. It might get some dings along the way. And so $100 is actually not too bad of a loss when you consider everything and how often you used it. In my opinion, I mean, is that something that's, pretty reasonable, or did you keep it in good shape by the time you sold it?
Yeah, so I had bought it used, and it was a pretty old hot dog cart to begin with, but they're not very popular. If you buy one brand new, they're $7,000, $8,000. And so I was hoping to make a profit, and I tried to sell it for 5,000, and gave up for a few months, and then ended up dropping. It took like 8 months to get it sold. But yeah, it was in decent shape, and there's not very many hot dog carts or hot dog cart vendors, and so I was just kind of waiting for a person that was interested in that business.
For sure. And which I find interesting too, like the aspect of going into the hot dog business and going into the food business, with you like really respecting your social life and making sure that you have time for it, as well as really respecting your own fitness and being very active in the community and very active with your own physical fitness. You also coached at Beachbody, right? And I don't find too much of a similarity other than, yes, you're an entrepreneur, but the food aspect I find interesting.
Yeah, as a Beachbody coach selling hot dogs.
Right. Yeah. And how did you end up going into the Beachbody situation, and what is that like?
Yeah. So I got started with Beachbody after college. So I was a runner in college, ran for 10 years. I was so burnt out, so exhausted after it that I took a year and a half off from exercise. I actually lost 10 pounds. I lost all my muscle. So I lost
Wow.
weight when I started exercising. So hot dogs are good for me because I need some food to keep my muscles going. But I started that. One of my best friends, and still my best friends to this day, said maybe you should think about exercising in some other way than running. And she told me about Beachbody, and she also told me about the passive income and the business side of it. When I started, I think I started Beachbody about 5 years ago. When I started that, I was not thinking about being a business owner. I just wanted to get discounts on their supplements. Very big into recover. I use their protein shakes, their pre-workout, all of that kind of stuff. So when I got started with that, it took me about 2 years, kind of once I started to decide I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, to start building that business with her. And so it's the same. It's a networking market networking business. So we bring in clients, and then hopefully they want to help other people come into the program, and it just kind of builds from that. But I've worked out with Beachbody. I can't stop. I do all of their programs. It's great.
And where is this? Is it like a specific location, or are you outside? What does it look like per program?
Yeah, so Beachbody is an online library of videos. If you've heard of P90X and Insanity, that's how they got started. So they actually own those programs. I do lifting. See?
Hey.
Yeah, I literally have not ran since I graduated college. Lifting is like my favorite thing now. But yeah, so you can do it from home. I still go to the gym, just because once I take my pre-workout and I get in the car, that is what I need to actually finish my workout. I kind of get lazy if I wait and be like, I'll do it from home today. It normally never gets done.
And where do you go to the gym? Or which gym do you go to?
I'm a Planet Fitness lover, probably because I'm really frugal. Nobody goes there to lift. They go to like run and walk on the cardio machines. And so the dumbbells are like always available.
I find that interesting too. I mean, I'm noticing that I'm saying that a lot about this interview. Just so many interesting aspects about this dynamic that you have with the entrepreneurship, the different things that you've done as well. And why would someone go to the gym just to run on a treadmill when you can just do it outside? I mean, why not just go there for the full access of things that you don't normally have at home? That's just me, you know? Maybe you have more insight
Yeah.
than I do on
I'm
that.
I was like, I'm super judgmental. Half of me wants to go up to those people and be like, hey, did you know there's like other programs you can do than just boringly walk on a treadmill or go walk outside in the sun? But, I'm working on I don't say that out loud, so I'm just insidely judgmental.
For sure. Are you still involved with Beachbody? Or, I mean, obviously you're still going
I
to the gym.
am.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so actually, I just got back from a team Beachbody summit. So think workshop, self development, curriculum, things like that. Just got back from St. Louis about 4 months ago. Really spiced it up. I'm a diamond ranked coach, which basically means I have like 4 or 5 clients under me that do the same thing.
That is
So yeah,
awesome.
it's been fun. That's part of the reason I was comfortable with going to the hot dog cart and having my winters free is because I was getting passive income from Beachbody that I normally spend on all their supplements because I really like it. But getting free supplements is a pretty cool perk.
Not a bad gig for sure. And going from that into, the more active lifestyle, and I know you're pretty active with, let's say, going on 14ers, going on hikes and things like that. Not too long ago, we're recording this in mid-September, but not too long ago, you posted up something saying, hey guys, me and Max are going out to Gray's and Torrey's Peaks. You guys should come along. You're pushing everyone to just come along and go hiking with you and things like that. What really drove you to maybe like the mountain scene, or what got you excited about like hiking these crazy 14ers?
Yeah, so I like goals. I like specific goals that I can measure, and 58 oh no, I forgot. 58 or 53 14ers is a very easy measurable goal. And so when I moved here and I actually started hiking 14ers in college. We did altitude training in my high school. And so we would go to Colorado and hike 14ers. So I did 4 in high school. Then we did it again in college and I did another 4. So when I moved here, I was like, I've already done 8 14ers. I was like, well, let's just do them all. And my community, like I said, my social life is really big. My community is huge. And so I do try to push a healthy lifestyle. And, some of the people that are like, oh, I couldn't do a 14er, let them know like they can. It might take some work, but if they set their mind to it, they definitely can. So there's always opportunities to exercise when you're in my circle.
I love it. When you're for those people that are within your circle, but they're a little bit more reluctant, or maybe they're excited for it, but they're just not physically adept. For that type of person, what would the training schedule be like in order for them to be more physically fit to do a 14er? And maybe which 14er might be the easiest to go to first?
So, in order to get shaped for a 14er, you need to actually live in Colorado for at least a month. I have a lot of friends that will come from Missouri and want to hike, and I'm like, you're going to get altitude sickness. So my advice is if you've never hiked in altitude is just go do some easy hikes, but like high mileage. Think like 8 or 10 mile hikes, but not a bunch of elevation gain. That'll get you acclimatized and that'll get your legs used to walking for 4 or 5 hours. A lot of the harder 14s can take 12 hours to hike. But the simpler ones that I would recommend people doing just to get started. So Mount Evans is only about a 3 mile hike, and there's actually a road all the way to the top. So if you can't make it all the way up, you could probably hitch a ride down or hitch a ride up. But that one's really good. And then Bierstadt's another shorter one that's kind of closer to Denver, a little bit higher. They have rocks. They're called boulder fields, where you have to kind of do a little bit more maneuvering. And just at the very top, so it's not too bad at all. But there's quite a few easy 14ers close to Denver that aren't too many miles.
Yeah, my buddies wanted to have a bachelor party over in the Breckenridge area. I convinced them, and it didn't take much convincing, to be honest. They were like, "Whoa, in the mountains? Hell yeah!" And we went over to Quandary Peak, and that wasn't too bad. I mean, you're looking at maybe 6 to 8 hours round trip, and it was a really nice day as well. Not a cloud in the sky, super windy at the top, but you learn so much about yourself as far as the mental capacity and the physical capacity of your own body what it can do on these big old hikes. So, I mean, other than the physical aspect, is there something mental that people need to prepare for?
Yeah, so it's that altitude sickness. If you get that, you can get over it mentally and sit down and drink some water. But a 14er, like I said, I'm all about goals. And once I set one, I really try everything I can to achieve it. And a 14er is the same way. It can be exhausting. You have to wake up at 2 a.m. to get to the trailhead to, be able to park. And haven't even started the mountain yet, and it's dark still. So a lot of mental, just dedication to making it to the top for sure. And
Yeah.
down's rough too.
Especially, yeah, I agree. Going up is one thing where your quads are aching, but now going down, your legs are already burnt out and you still need that support, like going down so you don't like fall, trip, whatever. It's something that people don't really realize on the way down. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And then my dog, Willow, that I mentioned, she's always tired on the way down. So she like trips me as I'm going down 14er. So be careful hiking with your dogs.
and make sure that they're ready and available to do that stuff too. So they
Oh,
won't be
yeah.
complaining. They're just excited to be out with you, but
Yeah.
and keep an active eye on their situation going forward. But outside of that, from the mountains, I like to go back to the city and talk about your other half of your life. And I feel like you post about this a lot in Instagram. You're dancing, like being a country line dancer and just being so active in that community. It inspires a lot of people to go out there. So I want to make sure that we're doing our due respect to that community. So where do you normally go for dancing? And you're really good out there, I have to say.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm a country swing dancer. Been dancing for about 5 years. Started out in line dancing. Started out going to the Stampede, which is a very large, huge dance floor off of Havana and Parker area in Aurora. And did line dancing, started learning partner dancing, started learning country waltz. I pretty much do every country style there is.
And were you dancing over in Missouri?
No, I didn't know it existed until I moved here. Had a friend from Petco actually invite me because it was 2 minutes away from Petco. So I'm very glad that friend told me about it.
Yeah, and at what point did dancing really speak to you? I mean, of course, it's a lot of fun, like doing the line dancing and everything, but you know, that part is a lot of fun. But to really pursue it, something must have clicked within your brain. Be like, yeah, I want to do this for real.
Yeah. Well, introduce wonderful boyfriend, also investor Max. He is a dancer, and I met him dancing. And so we clicked very quickly because at that point we were both interested in real estate as well. So having an actual partner to start training dancing, I started almost considering it a sport once we met. We'd practiced. We got into teaching about 9 months ago with Lucky's Country Swing. And then we got into competitions actually before we started teaching. And I loved competitions. I hadn't been a competitor since a college runner. So competitions were just so much fun. And having someone specifically to practice with really made a difference.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool spotlights for anyone who's interested. And I mean, even if you're not interested, definitely go check out Max and Ashley on the dance floor on Instagram. They're coaching as well. Is that right, Ashley? Are you coaching like certain smaller groups?
Um, yes, kind of. So we do once a month, we do like a specialty country swing lesson at that's actually an Omni Ballroom with Littleton. One of my favorite friends, an entrepreneur as well. She was actually my second real estate client. As a realtor for her, got her an Airbnb, and she was able to start a dance business because of the passive income from the Airbnb. So we teach for her about once a month.
Lovely. And before we move on to the real estate segment, I'd love to just have a plug for the Northwest Dance Festival coming up in Boise mid October. I know it's going to be about a month ish from now, but by the time that this releases, it would have already happened. So, how was it, Ashley?
Oh, I'm gonna guess it was absolutely spectacular. It's gonna be our first teaching experience at a workshop conference, and it's out of state, run by Dirt Road Dancing. So we are incredibly blessed that they chose Max and I to teach. And yeah, I'm excited. And since it's already happened, it was amazing.
How did they choose you, or at least reach out to you? What's the affiliation or the networking situation in order to get to you?
Yeah, so Colorado, one of the reasons we started teaching is to actually push workshops and push competitions. Unfortunately, Colorado has a stigma for being Yankee and country dancing not being very skilled and people tripping and falling, and it's actually really sad. So we have been trying to get country swing to have more of a safer style to it. So Max and I have been going across the state to do competitions and workshops for 2 years. So we just built a relationship with the Idaho dancers enough that they asked us to come teach for them.
Lovely. I'm glad that you guys are putting the Colorado dance scene a little bit of a higher tier, if not a lot higher tier, and trying to like incorporate the Denver community to get on par with the rest of the country with the country swing dancing. And it looks like a lot of fun. And you guys should definitely check out Ashley. Look in the show notes, look in the description of this podcast, just to make sure that you're following her and you're reaching out to these studios, these groups, and you're getting out there yourself. I mean, you don't have to be a pro on this stuff. You could be a beginner, intermediate, even a pro, just to enjoy yourself and enjoy the scene as well. So anything else you want to say about the scene, and maybe like for those beginners that are interested in it, do you have any sort of introductory lessons that people should be turned on to or anything like that?
Yeah, so if you do follow Lucky's Country Swing, that's where we're going to be in the most. It's run by someone else. Alexis Tomatis is her name. Fantastic teacher as well. She teaches a foundations class once a month, completely beginner, just literally how to even hold yourself while you're dancing. And you don't even need a partner. You can just show up and there's enough people. You rotate, you meet people. It's a wonderful community. So if you don't know what to do and you're looking for something new, I highly recommend country dancing.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So from there, you're obviously still dancing, but at the same time, you have another split life in the real estate world. So with real estate being so integral in your life right now, how did you even get started in the industry?
Yeah. So as you can see, I'm repping my house hacker shirt. I did not know this term existed until I was 2 years into being a house hacker. So my story is very unique. When I moved to Colorado, I had four animals with me. And I moved for my dad, unfortunately, was getting sick. So I caught up with my mom and moved to Denver. However, I could not afford any place that would allow me to have four animals. So I actually came up with a business plan. I told my mom if she would buy a property, I would live in it and I would rent out the other rooms. And she had been a property manager before in Missouri. And it was okay, not anything. She does not consider herself a real estate investor, or at least at this point she didn't. She does now. That's 4 years later. So she did. She agreed. So she bought a house in Aurora, 4 beds, 2 baths. I moved in with all four of my animals, and I rented out the three of the rooms. And it took me until meeting Max. He introduced me to Bigger Pockets, which introduced me to Craig, which introduced me to the Phi team. And then I learned that I had been house hacking all of this time, and there was a huge world around doing that.
What is house hacking? You keep saying this phrase, but I have no idea what it is, Ashley.
You don't. Huh, I think you should do some research, but I will help you out. So house hack normally it entails buying a property and then renting out the rooms, or buying a property and living in, say, the upstairs and renting out the basement to um, a tenant. I actually did not go about buying the property because at that point I could not afford anything. So I did something called rental arbitrage to add more vocabulary to your list. But that's basically somebody else is your investor, and then I called myself a live-in landlord. So I managed the property while I lived in it.
And what's the benefit of the owner, your mom in this case, with having a live-in manager, renting out all the rooms? And it just seems like a lot of management and just a lot of heads to take care of, you know? What's the benefit for her?
Yeah, so the benefit for her was that I was going to move to Denver and help her with family things. But besides that, when it comes to real estate investing, for her, it was a very passive way to make money. She did not want any of the management, and so she didn't have any. I paid her market rent, which at the time was $2,000 for this four-bedroom house, which was a pretty good deal for me, honestly. And I got to keep everything extra. I paid for utilities, I paid for furnishings. The only thing she did is if something broke in the house, she did pay for that because it was her house. So when we're actually in the process of selling now, she will get all the equity back. So she's paying to fix stuff.
I see.
But yeah, I give her her paycheck, whether or not I am down a tenant or two, I still owe her $2,000 a month.
Yep. So with you owing her $2,000 a month, that means her mortgage might have been under that $2,000 a month in order to make this a solid investment for her. Mind like explaining some of the numbers, like her mortgage amount was this much, you were paying her $2,000 a month for that market rent, and then how much were you getting for each of the other bedrooms?
Yeah, the numbers. I love the numbers. So my mom actually put quite a bit down. She put 50% down and bought it for 315 in 2018. So her mortgage was for $1,400 and I paid her 2000, so she made $600. So as for the money, I made $7 a month on the property, so I got to live for free. One of the things about rental arbitrage that's different, so my mom got all of the tax benefits. She could write off depreciation, she could write off, fixing a new furnace, things like that. Since I was just renting, technically I was a subleaser, so I paid higher taxes because I couldn't write anything off. So I paid about $300 a month in taxes and then about $300 a month in utilities. So I spent about $2,600 on the property and I made $2,607 on the property. And I wanted to share, yeah. But living for 4 years for free in Denver in a house with a backyard, a dog door if you're willing to sacrifice, I shared a bathroom with 3 people. If you're willing to sacrifice some just living comforts, it's an amazing way to jumpstart your life.
Yeah, and especially living with all those people and you being a live-in manager, how did you even find these people, and what were some common grinds my gears moments with living with your tenants at the same time?
Yeah, so in the beginning, since I had no one to ask questions about, I just did it on my own. So I used apps like Roomster, Roomy, a lot of Facebook Marketplace, and I just found strangers. Pretty much most of the people that moved into my house hack were from out of state, so they didn't know anybody else and just wanted to rent a room for 6 months or a year. Because I wasn't a real estate investor at that time, I wanted to be friends with my roommates that were going to move in. And so I actually got 2 girls. One was from Maryland and the other was from Wisconsin. Moved in. The 3 of us we clicked. It was really good. However, because I didn't make it clear that I was still their landlord, they were tenants of mine. They wanted to start breaking rules. Things like, oh, I don't want to crate my dog when I leave, or one of the girls wanted to break her lease early, but she told me about 3 months in advance, and there was an extra bedroom that we weren't renting at the time. And she was like, well, just rent out the other room and then I can have my money back because you'll have gotten it from that other tenant. And of course, because I was like scared of conflict and didn't know what to do, I was like, okay, I'll do that. Ended up getting the 3rd room in the house, 4th room, I guess, technically, the 4th room in the house rented, and then realized, oh, I'm making a lot of money. And so when I talked about the numbers, that was renting all of the rooms. Cause I think it was 3 months that we didn't rent all of the rooms. And so the girl ended up staying and ended up working out fine, but now we're sharing a house with 4 people, and they thought, well, now we need our rent less because there's more people in the house to split it. And I told them no, they signed leases, agreed to that price. I wasn't splitting the house. It wasn't $2,000 split 4 ways. I was trying to make a profit, or at least, keep my costs down. So the main thing I learned from the beginning was I can still be friendly to my tenants, but I shouldn't consider them friends in the sense that I call them roommates, that we hang out all the time, because they owe me money at the end of the month, every month. And if something goes wrong, then, I have to kick them out or not let them re-sign. So I switched my wording over to tenants after those girls ended up leaving, and made my rules very clear from the get-go.
It's a smart move. And a lot of people forget that it's a business, all in all. If the business is not making money, then there is no business at all. Like, why would you be putting all this effort into it if you're not mitigating your living expenses and finding ways to make it more beneficial for you and beneficial for everyone at the same time? It's a contract, and a lot of people don't realize that as well. It's once you sign that lease, it's agreed upon that you will be doing exactly as the lease says, unless both parties agree that it goes away or something like that. Something else is agreed upon in the future. So, I mean, that's a lot of things. Sorry. That's another thing that one of my friends is going through as well, where he's living in a certain house. He heard about this house hacking thing and he rented it, the basement. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath basement for $1,600, which is really good. However, it was his friend, and they didn't establish any sort of solid business-like transaction for, what are the responsibilities for the tenant, responsibilities for the landlord, and the whole living situation of like the common spaces, let's say the bathrooms. Who pays for the toilet paper? Who pays for a broken cutting board? Something as simple as that. And whose is whose and what is commonplace. So having that all established from the get-go saves so much headache. And it seems like you've learned that the hard way, but nonetheless, now that you've been through that experience, your future roommates, your future tenants will all benefit in the end because there are clear-cut rules going forward, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have redone my lease probably 4 or 5 times since I started, just adding stuff. One of the big ones I recently discovered was that I did not have a clause in there about selling my property. And once I got my real estate license, I moved out actually about 9 or 10 months ago. And it was a lot harder to manage the property when I didn't live there. Tenants were kind of getting in fights because I wasn't there to, kind of keep them in check. So when I moved out and got my real estate license around the same time, I really wanted to focus on being a realtor, not so much a property manager. So since my mom owns the property, I was like, I think we should sell. The market was starting to shift as well to a buyer's market. And so I kind of wanted to get it sold before it shift entirely. So I just up and decided to sell. And I told my tenants they had 6 weeks. I was going to pay everything back, including if they did damage. I was like, I will just give you your security deposits back. I had 2 tenants that were already about to leave. And then I had 2 tenants that just re-signed leases. One was re-signed her 4th year and the other one was re-signing his 2nd or 3rd. So I was nervous. I was like, the talks went well. However, one of the tenants looked up her legal rights and found out that she did not have to move out, that as a tenant, you are legally allowed to stay in the property, even if it's being sold. I was trying to explain to her that yes, you're allowed to stay, but I'm selling the property. So all of my furniture, which furnishes the house, is going to be gone. That means there will be no kitchen supplies. And I was going to redo carpets, repaint, redo the deck. I was planning a bunch of remodeling things. And so she ended up hiring a lawyer, and it cost $6,000 for my mom and I we didn't end up evicting her. We just settled on a cash out agreement. We had to hire a lawyer as well. So it was just a whole ordeal. So now in my lease, there's something that states that if you sign this contract, I am allowed to sell, and you have 60 days to leave the property. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff I learned along the ways that it's a risk to definitely do investing for sure.
Wow. I love to hear it though. This is stuff that is gold for people that are doing the rent by the room strategy, or people that are just learning about the ins and outs of what it's like to invest in real estate. Having an attorney, having a property manager, knowing what the tenant's laws are like. It's all super important in order for you to be successful in this industry. A lot of people just show and spotlight the great successes over investing in real estate, but this is the grand stuff that I'd love to just expand upon and communicate with the audience as well. So you mentioned that you're a realtor now, Ashley. I mean, which is not too far-fetched since you're a entrepreneur-like person.
Yeah. So yeah, I got my real estate license. It was actually my mom who it was the winter of the hot dog cart. I wasn't sure what to do. My mom was like, "Have you ever thought about getting your real estate license?" I thought it was a degree. I thought you had to go back to school and like get a bachelor's degree in real estate. Like I said, I had no idea what I was doing when I just started house hacking. So I looked into it and I was like, oh, it's just 168 hours, which should take like 4 months. Took me a year because I was just enjoying life. But I got it done. Like I said, I set a goal. I'll get it done. It might take me a while, but it normally gets done. And I, at that point, when my mom recommended it, I started going to real estate meetups with Max. He had already been going, so he introduced me to that world, introduced me to the house hacker meetups, which is how I met the FI team. So throughout the year of getting my license, I was already connecting to the FI team, which is what Ian is on. And it was a perfect match. Max was my first client 2 weeks into getting my real estate license. He was ready to buy another house hack. And it's been amazing. I've helped four new people become investors, one Airbnb, three house hackers, and then one person just buy their forever home. And Max actually just got his condo, my first listing on, got it, offer accepted yesterday. So he's going to be doing a turn 30. I know it was like 3 months. He's going to be doing he's going to be doing a 1031 exchange. Basically he doesn't want to pay taxes because he didn't live there for 2 years. So if he buys another property and puts his proceeds into that property, he can defer paying the taxes. So now I get to do this whole new experience, as an agent, on the basically upgrading his investing strategy.
Love it. And this is kind of what you were saying earlier with the turn of the market. I mean, earlier, quarter one, quarter two of 2022, we were seeing some crazy offers. Just like 50K over asking, 100K over asking price, depending on the property and the region. But nonetheless, a lot of people were either reducing the stipulations with the inspection, or taking care of the appraisal gap coverage, or just going above and beyond for the seller. So you were reading the writing on the wall and you're like, hey, we should sell my mom's place, and hopefully see that same end result with Max's place. And luckily you're under contract. I mean, you say that it took about like 3 months in order for you to get to this situation. Yeah. What did the offer look like, and what made it so attractive that you guys went under contract with it?
Yeah. So the condo that Max owned, this was again before he was a real estate investor. So he bought a 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom condo in Rhino, small, 800 square feet. But at the time he was, single bachelor pad, and wanted to live downtown. 2 months later, COVID happened, so he never actually got to enjoy living downtown. And then about 6 or 7 months later, he met me, and I told him about house hacking. So he ended up leaving the condo after about a year to buy a property to house hack. And so the offer that we got, at first we got a lot of interest in the first 2 weeks, but nobody was pushing to do any offers. And because I didn't know, I had never been a listing agent before, more things I learned along the way, is I didn't call any of those buyers in the beginning because houses normally don't stay on the market for more than a month. So I was like, oh, well, if they're interested, they'll make an offer. Month passed, we were still getting showings regularly. We had 5 a week, which I had talked to the team and they're like, that's healthy, that's fine. So it was priced right in the sense that people were coming and looking at it, but it was taking a very specific person that wanted an 800 square foot condo in Rhino. And so what I switched to doing was actually calling and talking to everybody that went and looked at the condo, kind of started building rapport with some of the agents. A couple of them I even called back after a couple of weeks. 2 months in, we actually did a seller's credit for $5,000. So that, in a sense, instead of dropping the price, because buyers right now are struggling buying because the rates are so high. So we were like, well, we will give you $5,000 to buy down your rate to make it more affordable to afford the condo. That gave a little bit more interest, and then we started actually having people ask, like, what would it take to buy? Max and I pretty much were sticking to our listing price because he only owned it for 2 years. There was not much equity in the property. So we got the offer we accepted originally. It took the entire weekend. We were talking to them from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They offered really low, 425, which was only $5,000 more than what he bought it for. We're like, well, we're gonna lose money. So I just told them straight up, like, he can't go that low. And I was like, honestly, we're gonna rent it out if he can't get it for around listing price. So then they come back at something that's 20,000 under listing. We say the same thing again, that we are just going to rent it if he can't get it sold. And eventually they offered 10,000 under, which at this point Max was like, well, that's actually, that's okay, because now I will still make about $30,000 in profit, which in 2 years, and getting to live in a condo by himself for a year was pretty decent. However, we did a couple of negotiations because they had the seller paying for a lot of closing costs, and closing costs can be, upwards of $10,000. This one would be, it's a smaller place, so it'd be less. So we actually asked if they would pay for title insurance. That's one of the more costly things when you're buying a property, and normally the seller pays for that. Which you actually had to tell me about. So they ended up giving Max $1,000 credit towards title and closing costs. So it was basically a $9,000 under offer. But it was priced pretty high because the market was really good when we listed it, and it's just kind of dropped since it's on the market. But we're happy as long as it goes through, because the 1031 will be strict, since there's 45 days to find a equivalent property.
Love it. I'm glad that you guys are under contract and you're learning so much, especially as a listing agent. With Max's property, it sounds like you can bring over that experience over to your mom's property as well. So all in all, it's a positive. Just making sure that, it's just a lot to consider going forward. Like, what is the state of the market? What are people actually looking for in a property like Max's, or even like your mom's? I mean, 4-bed, 2-bath in Aurora versus a 1-bed, 1-bath in Rhino. It's considerably different properties. And it's nice that you're going to be seeing both sides of the coin in the whole greater Metro Denver area. So I'm loving this experience that you're getting. So, with that being said, I know that you haven't, I guess with the Aurora property that your mom was owning, that you were the living manager, you didn't own that property. I mean, what's your next move for your investment portfolio?
Yeah, so recently I've signed up for the MLS, so multiple listing service in Royal Gorge area. So this is Canyon City. I'd mentioned that before, where my family lived. So I've been property managing my mom's primary residence in Canyon City for about a year and a half now. We run it as an Airbnb. She retired during COVID and decided to RV sail. She's never at her house anymore. So I was like, your house would be a really good vacation spot. So I told her like how to make it look like an Airbnb. She has so many antiques, these creepy dolls everywhere. So I told her, I was like, you have to get rid of the dolls. She kept 3, and we still get comments that people are like, the dolls are a little creepy. And they're just very old antique dolls. Yeah, because she was like, I'm not getting rid of all of my dolls. So yeah, we've gotten 2 comments that the dolls, I was like, you should have saw it before I told her to get rid of the dolls. But yeah, so we run that as an Airbnb. The prices in Canyon City are half the price. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that she bought for 120 or 140 about 10 years ago, and it's worth about 310-ish right now. So I'm doing something called a DSCR loan. So that's debt service coverage ratio. So that is a loan that they look at the property instead of the buyer. Because I haven't been self-employed for 2 years, it looks like I make no income whatsoever. So I can't get a regular conventional loan, but I can get, considered a commercial loan. Downside is I have to put 15% down. And if I put 20% down, I can get a little bit of a lower rate. So I've been saving my money for 2 years now, and looking to buy a property in Canyon City to run as an Airbnb. And we're actually going to tag team it. So since I'm the manager, I have access to her app. What I don't want to do is have an Airbnb under my name and have to go back and forth on accounts, because I won't get notifications. So the way we're going to do this is it will actually look like I am my mom owning this Airbnb, and I'll just property manage both of them. And so we're hoping some of our clients that come back on a regular basis, if it's booked, then they can just come to mine. We're going to set it up almost exactly the same, and everything like that. So, and that should be happening in the next 2 or 3 months. I'm Rates are going up so high, but I'm trying not to let that deter me.
It's a little tough, and I know the Fed's going to be meeting up a couple more times by the time that this episode releases, so it's going to be tough. And it's what Kiyosaki said. It's not can I afford it, it's how can I afford it, right? So it's all about utilizing all these things that you've learned so far about being an agent and using loans that are now new to you, but you're working things out with your lender. DSCR loans, I never even knew that existed in like outside of the Bigger Pockets community or what have you. And talking with people like you or talking with the other Fight Team agents, I'm learning so much. And for all those future agents that want to join the team or want to learn what Denver's all about, I mean, come hit up us or the Fight Team in general or Craig. We have a direct connection with him, obviously, but it's all about like getting in the right team and understanding what is possible for your buyers, your clients, and also yourself, because ultimately we want to have you reach financial independence as well. So all of that being said, Ashley, I feel like that's a really good place to wrap up a little bit more. But before we head out and I get your tags and your accounts and all that good stuff, do you have any questions for me?
I do. So you started this podcast. What was your dream, your goals, and your why?
Oh, nice. Yeah, was starting this podcast. So, and I don't know if you knew this, Ashley, but I had a podcast before this called Big Locals Podcast. And I started it as a way for me to get friends. I started it in August of 2020, so during COVID. And that's when I moved to Denver in August of 2020. And I couldn't go to bars. I couldn't go to restaurants. I couldn't go to meetups. So what's the best way for me to provide value for the community and get friends at the same time? It's through a podcast, Big Locals Podcast. And I brought up other businesses like farmers markets, restaurants, and things like that. And I got them to tell their story on a podcast. So with no charge, like I wanted to just provide all this value for them. I still want to do that for the community, and which is why we're calling it Invest in Denver. It's not just real estate related. It's not just community related, but it's also small business related. So I'm having a plethora of different kinds of people on the podcast just to talk about them, talk about their life in Denver and how they're making a living and how they're enjoying it. So my ultimate why is making sure that people are fully aware of the power of Denver and just where can you have a good time here? What's the best way to invest in real estate here in Denver? Or what's the best 14er to go check out? Let's enjoy Colorado and Denver specifically together. So that's my why. And where I see it going is I would love to have big events. Let's say like a beer garden, live music, food trucks, and have like the Invest in Denver event, like an annual event, and have people just congregate there, have a good time, and just enjoy the atmosphere that is Denver, the Mile High City.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
It's my 3-minute elevator speech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you got?
Should I have anything else?
No, you don't have to. I'm just being courteous before I assume anything. So, but I am eternally grateful that you are here, Ashley. It's been a long time coming, and I have heard your story, first of all, over at your, when you presented over at the Blake Street meetup for the Fight Team, and then also heard about most of your story and got to see the property on YouTube, which I filmed. I toured it with you, and I am so blessed just to even hear like your whole story behind that property, because now it's opened up a whole world of ideas of what I could provide for my clients and what they can do. So go check out YouTube, search Ashley Wolkomir. Wolkomir? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Okay. Wolkomir. Check it out on YouTube, and it's a lot of good information on here. It's about 60 minutes, and I can't find a place where I tried to edit more, but it was just chock full of information. I was like, I'm not cutting out the rest of this stuff. So it's chock full of good information. So Outside of that, Ashley, where could people find you? And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so my personal social media pages, Facebook is Ashley Wolkomir Phi Team. Instagram is Ashley Wolkomir. And then Max and I also have a YouTube channel for our dancing. Always Want Another Dance. Specifically just longer videos for those dancers to pull some moves from.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I am Ian Real Estate Agents. Go check me out on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I provide weekly videos on like house hacking, vlog tours, what have you. A lot of good information and resources for you to consume for free. So this is all part of the Invest Endeavor podcast and ecosystem. Check us out. Check out Ashley's dancing. It's fantastic stuff. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.